Good night.
Good night. Okay, good evening, everyone. This is David McBride. I'll call the meeting for the Property Reviews Committee for Wednesday, November 16th in order at 5:30. The meeting's being held live at Town Annex as well as via Zoom at the link. So I'll take a roll call. Councilor Bordelon.
I'm here.
Present. Councilor Westervelt.
Here.
Okay, with this also are a few members from the various agencies. We have Bob Frink from the Groton Housing Authority and Larry Dunn from the Conservation Commission. So thank you for coming out again, gentlemen. Appreciate it. First order of business is public comment. There are a few individuals online. I don't see any hands up, but if anyone is interested in providing a comment, I do know I did receive a letter from Catherine Pratt, and I see her online. Catherine, would you like to read that yourself, or do you want me to read that? If I don't hear from you, I'll just assume I'll read it.
We just to bring her over. You want to bring?
Okay, Catherine, you're allowed, if you can unmute, if you wanted to read your letter into the record, that would be great.
Did I unmute?
Yes, we can hear you. Great.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's a little long perhaps to read, what I can do so.
If you want to paraphrase, that's fine. We'll put it in the records if that's what you desire.
I'll just start reading it. If it becomes too long, please let me know. It's 2 pages, but okay.
That's fine.
Okay. Chair McBride, Councilor Bordelon, and Councilor Westervelt. Thank you for the important work the Property Reuse Committee is doing to establish a comprehensive and transparent process for the review and potential disposition of unused or underutilized town-owned or, as applicable, non-town-owned property. I appreciate this opportunity to offer a few suggestions for the committee's consideration related to the screening process for RFP respondents. In accordance with its governing statutes, the State Contracting Standards Board may, after notice and a hearing, quote, disqualify any contractor, bidder, or proposer for a period of not more than 5 years from bidding on, applying for, or participating as a contractor or subcontractor under contracts with the state, unquote. Among the causes for such disqualification are the following. 1, conviction of or entry of a plea of guilty or nolo contendere or admission to the commission of a criminal offense as an incident to obtaining or attempting to obtain a public or private contract or subcontract, or in the performance of such contract or subcontract. I don't know if you want me to read all of this. There's 2 more sections from the state statutes. The other is about violating state and federal laws for embezzlement, theft, forgery, bribery, falsification, or destruction of records, and so forth. And the other one has to do with violating state or federal antitrust law. So I won't read them all because I don't want to take too much of your time, but they're all in my letter quoted.
Okay,
And
no, that's fine. I think we understand the intent of what you're trying to do, and we will include that in the documents. But that is one of the items we've discussed, is how to make sure there are some, I don't want to say exit strategies, but things that we can do to make sure, we don't take the developer if there's issues, which is, I think, is what you're going through. So we appreciate your comments.
yeah, I went on to just suggest that the town could do 2 specific things. Require prospective purchasers to verify or submit a sworn affidavit to cert that they have not been convicted of certain crimes, and that a clause be entered into any contract entered into by the town or its agents for the disposition of public property, stating that the purchaser or developer represents that he has not been convicted of certain things, crimes. So that was it. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate your time.
Mhm.
Any other residents care to speak? Okay, moving on.
David, Mary Ellen Forlong has her hand raised.
Okay, thank you. I apologize, Mary Ellen, I didn't see that. You can unmute and you're free to talk.
Okay. I'm really happy with what you're doing. And I really am also very happy that you're asking some of the land use commissions to look at what you're doing. One of the things that I wish to caution you on is the fact, as I learned 10 years on wetlands, the developer you start with is not necessarily the developer you're going to wind up with. It is very common for a developer to start a project, and once he gets his first okay from one of the commissions, then he will very often sell the project to another developer. This is common practice. One of the things that really matters is how tight the contract is. The contract, it's all in what the contract says. And that is something you may want to take up with your development people, your lawyers, or so on. Those contracts have to be ironclad. That's all I want to say, and I am very happy with what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary Ellen. Appreciate the comments. A second. What do I do here? Oop, no, that's gonna, just nothing. I think we just leave it. All right, let me get my bearings here. So next up is communications. I'll start. I did receive some communications that I have distributed. Larry Dunn provided information from the Conservation Commission with regards to the viewer and the capabilities of seeing parcels that he discussed last meeting, as well as the flow chart, which I have provided a copy of to everyone. So thank you, Larry, for that. Also received a voicemail from Roseanne Kotowski. Her main comment, I'll paraphrase, but her main comment was she didn't believe it was appropriate that we were having discussions, nor should we consider renaming that committee. We talked about renaming it a different name. We called it X, so that could be used for other functions, other areas of the government later on. She didn't think that was appropriate, so I just wanted to pass that on. Bob Frink also provided a flow chart, and I believe that's been distributed to everybody as well, which was a request that we had last meeting to try to really flesh out this property reuse. Catherine Pratt, you saw that. I also, with regards to communications, do want to let the committee know that I did reach out to President Melendez, as I indicated I was, with regards to extending the committee membership. And he did text me back today that said he will let John know that he's okay with us expanding the group and anything we see fit. So that's something the three of us wanted to do earlier. So we will move forward with that, making sure you're official members of the committee as well as the members of the residents as we originally desired. So that's good news. So thank you, President Melendez, for extending that opportunity. So next matter of business is approval of the minutes. November 2nd, 2022 minutes. As I've distributed those, I emailed to yourself and Councilor Westervelt. If you had the opportunity to review them or any comments.
Oh, I just thought with communications, we wanted to just make sure.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. Yeah, anyone else, current members of the committee?
No, I just was gonna say I had the same communications as that you stated. The only thing I did not get is, I know at the last meeting, it was stated that there'd be a way we might be able to get a password to get into that document. Has that come about yet, do you know? Database or a way to get into the database that was discussed at the last.
Is that their database?
So we could view it.
There's several databases.
Right.
If you're talking about like utility and other easements, those are all CAD databases, which is very difficult for anyone to get at other than the town staff. So that's like one chunk. Then there's town-owned property. And also, and the uses of those, that's the viewer that I sent that we've been working with the, I mean, IT department, planning department. We've been working through that to get that total list and get it categorized. So I think from a ease of use point of view, that's probably the one, and again, it's gonna be agreed to with the planning staff as well as, so it's a town-owned thing. We did the work and we want to make sure it's town-owned so everyone could use it. So we're not quite done with it, as actually, as a result of the town council meeting, we're gonna make some changes to what's designated protected open space, and then we're trying to change the terminology. It says town-owned vacant is kind of what we're thinking about, so that we know these are the vacant properties. Then there's a set with facilities, there's stuff with cemeteries. I mean, there's other uses, but most of those are not, all cemeteries aren't town-owned property, none of those are. And there's things that are used, so the focus, which I think you're looking for, would be the category of the layer that we're gonna label as town-owned vacant. Right? It says doesn't have utilities on it, doesn't have facilities on it. Now, I mean, that would be the starting point, and hopefully we can clean that up within the next month. I just got a note from the IT department that says it should be fairly straightforward. We have some meetings to kind of, the data's, I mean, the parcels are all there. We just got to re-swizzle and put the layer in, right? So the intent is to be able to give you a layer for town-owned vacant properties. And a subset of that will say that there are some that are currently or historically were open space but are unprotected. That'll now be in the town-owned vacant, given the other meeting, so that we don't confuse the two. And that's really what all we were trying to do, is to end and not have any confusion between what's protected and what's not, because there's two totally different mechanisms if you want to do anything with those properties. So we've done the analysis, we've done the review, but now it's just sorting.
And you think that over the next month we'll have that?
I hope so. Again, partly it's the IT department doing the work. We will have the work sorted, give it to the IT department. They're going to do the GIS work. Then we have the viewer, which I guess you sent out. When you look at that, yeah, oh, I don't know if you sent out, but if you get on there, you can actually extract the table. And so it'll be pictorially, but you can also extract a table and then in Excel, and you could sort it any way you want. So that, I think, would be the best database to utilize for the effort.
Okay, and that would come into play in our document as part B or whatever, that listing that we're gonna come up with. So
Correct.
That will fill that. Okay.
Yeah, and I guess the committee would have to discuss what layers and but my suggestion would be is town-owned vacant would be the most likely base for starting any review.
And you think that will include all areas?
Would be all areas owned by the town.
So so everything's included. There's nothing missing on that.
To my knowledge, there's nothing missing. I mean, we got 500 and something parcels in there. So there's quite a few.
All right, so I will send that out. I didn't see that it wasn't sent to me, it's just me. So I'll distribute that to the rest of the committee. And we can talk about it later, but we did talk last meeting about coming up with a list of maybe 5 or 10 now. I think we talked about last meeting that we want to look at. So we'll get to that once we get to the document, because this is a month away. I don't know if we want to wait in 1 month. Sometimes it's 2 months, right? So maybe we still want to go back to coming up with that top 5 that everybody has that we want to try to tackle. But we'll get to that when we get to the document.
Well, as it stands today, you can get town-owned property. There might be, like I said, some things may change category, but you can, depending on the criteria you want to use, you can certainly pick the top 5 from that list today. I'm just saying we're trying to make it easier.
Okay, so maybe what I'll do is I'll distribute that to everybody. Everybody will look at it, and then for next meeting, unless you have thoughts now, come up with your top 5, because I think we want to get to the point where we're identifying what property. So when the council reviews this, we can come out rolling forward, right? We don't want to wait another 2-3 months to identify properties. Like you had 2 properties the other night, right?
The 2 properties, that's just historically they've been considered and are on the state registry as protected, and we found out that they're really not. So we were trying to fix it. But then basement's fine. It's a town-owned vacant. Then it would go through the process. I don't have a problem with any of that. I just didn't think it was that. You can't, nobody wants to buy this stuff, but that's beside the.
Right, but if this process is refined over the next month or two and council approves it, we would quarterly review these properties. Those properties would be on it. They would just go to the council or go to the committee the tow committee would recommend those two parcels get. Right, isn't that kind of,
Well, yeah, or if the town council wants a bank of town-owned properties that could be traded off, that's a whole different discussion. So, right, so there's one thing of protecting it, but I want it to be, it's suitable for open space, but we don't want to protect it. We want to put it in a bank. I mean, that's what I heard. Now, some of the things would be, is it bankable property that's suitable for exchange? Some of them are, because all open space is not equal. I mean, right?
yeah.
We don't even want some of the town-owned properties. We've gone through the list. And very few, we said we wanted to consider for open space. I mean, listen, I think it was five. Top five. So we went through and identified five. We went through and said, yep, these are protected, not an issue. Two, you said, and one we deferred, which was the Flanders Road one. So, you know, that's hands off on that one. So that's kind of where we stand. So we've kind of done that very similar analysis that you're asking for, but we only viewed it through a conservation lens, not a broader lens for housing or anything else.
So just to piggyback on that, when you talk about this database with the land in there, does it include like, for example, like some people didn't realize in Old Mystic, that little green right there in the middle of 27 before you get to 184, that some people didn't realize that that was like town property. Is that included in this database?
I hope so. I mean, we found a bunch of stuff that wasn't recognized, so it's evolving. I mean, I'm not gonna say it's 100%.
Right.
But if there's something in there that somebody says, oops, it's missing, because we're doing that all the time. Almost every month we say, we just found something else. I mean, there's a lot of little parts and pieces, but some of them are like 0.1 acres and I mean, so there are a lot of those in there. So I won't say absolutely it's there. It should be there. And that's the mechanism we're using to find stuff and update it. Again, official town database, it's GIS. So.
Okay, all right, we'll move on, but I'll send that list out to everybody. If everybody can try to identify 5 or 10 properties that they think the town should look into moving on, let's do that. Any other communications?
I'm good.
Councilor Westervelt? You're on mute. You're on mute, Council.
Sorry, we pretty much covered everything that I have gotten between what you guys have already said, so I'll just say yes, we're good.
Any other future committee members?
Are you guys, it looks like there's a few other people that arrived. I'm comfortable with asking if they have any comments, since we're pretty, flexible here. Since if they, just ask them, are you okay with that?
Yeah, okay. Any other comments from recent individuals that have joined? If so, just raise your hand.
Marion Furlong's hand's always been on.
Yeah. Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. So any other communications? I'll start with communications. Next up is approval of the minutes. Sent that to Councilor Westervelt and Councilor Bordelon. If you want to take a look at it. If you want to hold off, if you want to make any changes, please move forward, make a motion as you see fit.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion has been made by Councilor Westervelt to approve the minutes.
And I'll second that.
Councilor Bordelon seconds. Any discussion on the approval of the minutes? Hearing none, take a vote. All in favor of the minutes as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 3-0. Next up is the old business town-owned property reuse evaluation process. So kind of open for discussion on how we want to proceed with this. What I did provide was the 2 flow charts we received. I also went through and documented in the past draft. I went through and made the comments that as best I could on the current format. So there's just probably 3 things we need to do before we can move on. One would be to review this document again, section 1 that we're focusing on, to see if there's any additional comments anyone has, and then to incorporate some of the flowchart discussion. So maybe what's best, if anyone else has any comments, the floor is open, but would you want to take a stab at reviewing the flowcharts first, or do you want to take, or are you comfortable with the flowcharts first? And there's 2 different really flowcharts. Is this flowchart, which I think this is Larry's flow chart, which is a little bit more higher level, I would say.
Right, that was the intent.
Yeah,
High
no, I
level,
like-
get the flow.
Yep.
There's a lot of great details in the other one, but it's just a question of what
Yeah.
time.
Oh, this is yours?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah. Why don't we go through the high level flow chart first and just take a look at it? Let's go through and see if it matches up with our plan. And then we'll go into a little bit more detail on your more detailed plan, Bob. I think his is more detailed myself.
but I mean, you had a lot of what to do background.
Yeah, this is a step by step, really, out of. Yeah, you kind of mirrored this process. Yeah. Right, right. Yeah, this is more of an accompanying, an appendix to this.
But I think that they all, I think they all do serve a purpose. I do like, the writing portion on, these areas here. I think it's nice with this chart to have this as like an appendix of sorts where you could kind of, if it does match up with this one as well, it really does define.
I think we have to have that.
Yeah.
This was just a outline.
Yeah, I think the flow chart you developed, we'll use as an appendix, but I think the information you provided, we should embed in this document. Because you give more details to the components of what this is.
Maybe there's a way that we could, I mean, we can go through it, but it would be kind of cool and time saver. I don't know if the two of you guys wanted to kind of see a way to see how these two maybe merge
Yeah.
in some way. I think they're both really great and it could even be, we can talk about it here, but it also could be done offline and brought back to the next meeting, to take the information and kind of.
I would agree with that with one comment that I think your flow chart is higher level we can review. But I think yours should be mixed in with this. I mean, yours may be easier to read or I don't know if it's easier to read, but it provides more detail, better flow. Okay. This stuff. So I think if everyone agrees, we can maybe migrate from this plan and kind of move towards your plan for the detail components. Right. But then as the appendix, your high level kind of says it all. So I think, can we start with just reviewing? Do you want to go through that? Larry, and just kind of.
I mean, I took the document as presented and tried to reconstruct it. So I don't think my intent was not to change anything, but to document what was.
Goes through the process.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it all starts with that the TOPC was chartered by the town. And if you flow down, the inputs from the left was, in fact.
1 second, Larry, I don't. I'd have to log into email.
Okay, no, yeah.
Um,
We were just gonna see if we could load it up on the screen as a screen.
Oh, I mean, I could load it up on the screen too. Let's share the screen.
yeah, that's a great idea, Kelsey.
Oh, yeah, you could log into the Zoom.
It should be in the meeting invite, right? Groton, where's Groton? I know you're here someplace.
I think you'll have to check your email because it wasn't in. She's been on vacation, so this
Oh, it's not in the.
this agenda came out last.
Okay, well, let me get rid of that. So, so it's an email?
I know you had sent it to me in email. Forward it back to you.
Yeah, because I.
Is he looking for the link to get onto the Zoom?
Yeah.
He's looking for the link to get onto the Zoom.
Right.
I can send him the Zoom link or town email him.
I got your notes. I don't see that I saved that because I was gonna be. Yeah, I think you need to send that to me.
All right, I'm gonna send you. I'm sending you, Larry, the flow chart.
Well, I have the flow chart. I just need to.
Oh, okay. You sending the,
I can go digging at it if you want. Make sure I can get on.
I'll try to find it too.
Yeah, sorry.
Councilor Westervelt, do you have the link available? I can't search that one on my phone. You're muted. You're muted.
Well, he must have the link. He signed in. So,
Which link are we looking for? The one to the flow chart?
No, the Zoom, yeah, the Zoom.
Just what's the Zoom invitation?
Oh, okay. Yes, I do have that. Bear with me.
I'm digging too.
One screen on the laptop is, it's easy to do. Okay, where do you want me to send it to?
Larry Dunn at dunhome.com.
Larry Dunn, D-U-N-N at dunhome.com.
Correct.
It's going to come from my SWS tier VLT account, but you should get it.
I have it pulled up too, but it doesn't.
Sorry what I was trying to say, but I know I was muted. I was trying to bring it up to see if David could let me share it, but this computer will not let me open the presentation. Or the flow
Okay,
chart,
came in my phone, it came in here. And Zoom. Please click on the button on the webinar. Nope, not the webinar. Let's see. Wow.
Counselor Westervelt, is it just, it's saying that you don't have access or?
Okay, I'm in.
For some reason, it won't open that file.
Yeah, you need to promote me. Panelist. And let me clean this up so I can get the. That would be Adobe. And let me do share. Echo. That's interesting. There. Screen. Flow chart.
There we
Boy,
go.
that took a while. Sorry
No,
about
that's
that.
great.
Okay.
I suggest as we go through this, just because at the end, maybe it'll save time to do it this way. Is at the end, what's on this one,
Mhm,
we need to be able to find where it matches
Right.
with this,
mhm.
which what then you'll find where it is in the text.
Mm.
As you're going through, you just make sure that our titles and where it is. You were aware where it is in the text. I just wanna
Yeah,
make
this
sure.
matches the text. This would.
I think mine does. I followed the text. I didn't invent,
Okay.
when I invented, I put in blue ink. It's light colored on this.
Okay.
Okay, there's some light lesser. I didn't, get into the how the TOP actually does it, these steps.
Right.
You know,
Well, we can go through a parallel too. Why don't we go through one step at a time?
well, it's,
Well, I'm saying when we get to something here and it's reflected on this and it's reflected on this, that's the time when we say, okay, here's.
Yes, yeah.
I've already checked it off and we will all know how it was covered so that at some point.
Okay, shall we?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
either way.
So the first one is with actually what you just said, prioritize the property to value it. So that was kind of where we started. The input to that was the goals, which is in the document under the section goals, and the baseline property list, which we discussed earlier. All right, so that would be more specific. Then the evaluation process now I'm looking at that, it's probably a little bit reversed. Evaluation process to identify the parcel to evaluate probably should come before the prioritization.
Yeah.
Now that I just looked at that.
That's how we're reading it.
All right, so that needs to get up there. Okay. So, and that's, the input from town staff, the input from the commissioners, yada, 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 input from the community. That is kind of a very high level, so that would need a lot of detail, that we talked about. But
Can we ask questions as we go or?
sure,
Okay, so evaluation process to identify parcels, that's the first thing here.
right.
So that's looking at this big list. And somehow prioritizing this in some way. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I also, if you might, I don't want to cut you off, so. Am I cutting you off? I apologize.
No.
Oh, I also would just say too, that list should be ever changing. that baseline property list,
Yes,
I see that little funnel there, canister, whatever, that list as it's gonna evolve. Like, what we think it is today won't be what it will be in a month.
it changed,
maybe.
absolutely.
Right, so once we have this database, I envision that it would be flowing and moving with the change in the time of Groton. So I like the fact that that's just kind of there, but the list, our priorities that the town council picks or the next council picks might not be what the next council picks, or the next town manager, or the direction of building senior housing or Groton Housing Authority or
Well,
protecting land. So I kind of,
I think there's two things in what you said. First is the cylinders of his database.
Yeah.
The database is what I just said, working with the town is continually updated.
Right.
So, I mean, we can add notes to that effect, but that's, to me, that's a given
okay,
because it is not static. And matter of fact, not just that, but for instance, you brought an example of, is that one in Old Mystic in there? We'll go
Yeah.
check it. If it's not, then we'll add it. I mean,
Yeah.
So I think that's evolving. There could be notes, et cetera, that indicate that.
Right.
Or reference to, the viewer database as, yeah.
Yeah, I think we also have in the listing, we say that the council, this committee should be reviewing it quarterly. So that's ongoing.
Yeah.
But then there should be a quarterly meeting by the top committee to prioritize, continually prioritize. So I think it's both ongoing and prioritizing it quarterly.
Is it obvious, or can we throw the word current in there? In terms of current priority? Since the next time we may say, tell you what, these things just dropped off the priority list because we have these other things that are way more priority now that we want to do X, Y, Z. I just don't want anybody, and maybe it's not required, but
I mean, it's a good thought. I think under the box evaluation process to identify the parcel, that's where that goes. Where, the town council priorities, whatever would come into there.
just want to make sure. that the
Right, this
priorities
needs to
are
be
fixed.
updated quarterly is what I just heard.
Could you explain who's doing what here? Like prioritize property, who is that? Tope?
So
Tope.
if it's not stated to someone else, it's Tope.
right, because I'm reading this as the heading here, town council charter, the TOPC, that's the main frame and everything that's
Correct.
falling under that as I'm reading it thus far.
And then you get inputs from other folks. That was the intent of this.
Okay, thank you.
So the other input was town staff, which is a broad one, right? Because there's a lot of agencies in the town staff, so I kind of summarize that. And then the commissions as well. And then the community. I mean, I don't know if I missed something, but I thought that covered the three major components.
Yeah, I'm just thinking how the community comes into play. Well, they just give their feedback, right? They're not actually involved in the document, reviewing the document, but
No.
you're saying they continually give feedback on their interest.
Well, like the meetings would raise their hand, they
Yeah.
provide.
Right, they could, I mean, my hope would be that this committee would have a public comment aspect. Also, when they're taking that database and saying, and the people that are involved making the decision and prioritizing a movement on a property, that would then pull in that community outreach and input that people spoke of like, adding somebody from that district or having a public hearing, in a timely manner. But also there might be someone who shows up to this committee that says, hey, this parcel of land over here has been sitting, how come it hasn't made it on your list? It's, having that community engagement, so they should be involved.
Well, I guess ideally the committee should be reviewing quarterly, and it will be a public meeting. where The community will come out and give feedback at that time as to what they.
Correct, that's what I,
priorities are.
yeah,
Okay.
with a public comment, yeah.
So these three arrows then, town staff, commissioners and community, they're going into prioritize now. Or are they still in evaluation?
They're part of the evaluation process. And the action from that would be to do the priority.
So they're giving input, but the TOP committee's priority.
That's a
Are
priority.
those folks gonna look at this list? And
Well, they may not, they're gonna look at whatever they desire, they want to look at based upon their own self-interest.
right, but from this list, I mean, it has to be on this list or property they're aware of. And, okay,
Or like your example with the green that you mentioned.
Yeah.
It may need to be added to the list and then
Right.
they can comment on it. But it should be the TOPS committee to prioritize.
It could be that someone's gonna, leave some land, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
And they might show up at this meeting and say, oh, we have some land we want to leave. And they're gonna add it to this list. So I feel this list, this database is gonna be ever changing and it
Yes.
could be, it could be that we acquire some new land and it goes through this process as well.
Always acquiring land.
Yeah.
Foreclosures, gifts.
Right.
I mean, you're right. It's dynamic. It is not static.
Right. And it doesn't mean that if it's not on this list, it can't be discussed by this committee either. So every
Yeah.
piece of land is up
that's
for
a good point.
grabs, so to
That's a good
speak.
point.
Yeah,
Right.
that's the way I see it.
Yeah.
Well, if you're closing down another school, it's not gonna be on the list until
Right.
it's closed. So, yeah.
Right.
But I think to your point about prioritization, like we're saying, the prioritization, we take all that information and then so figures out what's priority, because that's kind of the point.
That's the point.
That's the point. Rather than have everybody kind of jostle around. Our first take is here's priority. And the council and say, no, we don't think so, but that's the point. That's what they're there for too. So.
I just think this is also, as the council changes every 2 years and town staff change, having this is like amazing to have. Like, I wish I would have had something like this when I joined, 4 years ago to understand the properties, so this is, there might be no movement, but just to have a database and my other question, I know some folks spoke about these easements. Would those easements also be in this database?
Okay. Yes, let me talk to easements. 2 buckets.
Yeah.
Conservation easements and utility. Under that general utility, putting schools aside. So the conservation easement, we are working at. We're almost there. So that is going to be in the database I mentioned. The utility easements, when I talked to the town, I said, there's a lot of those and they're not in a database. As I said, they're not in a database like this. They're in CAD. They're in CAD databases. You need specialized programs to access them. I mean, it's a whole different animal. So I think from that point of view, I'm not sure that Tope should worry about easements per se.
Not at this point.
No.
You don't buy and sell easements. I mean, they're either there or not there, and they, legally, I think it's the town wants to do. You can't sell somebody's easements because, like, I have easements on my property. I go, no, you can't sell that.
No.
Council's not, doesn't
Right.
need to.
Right. So so that's why I'm not sure that easements is
Fair.
is part of this.
Yeah.
Is part of the Tope.
What's an example of a conservation easement?
For example, on the not the across from Flinders Road, for the data center property.
Yeah.
There is a conservation easement that goes through there, goes along the road, and then it goes under the highway. So, and we've walked that and documented it because it's important for animal access, et cetera, et cetera. So so that's an example of a conservation easement. And it's either access to something else, as you're trying to build trails,
Right, yeah,
or it's when a buffer, or the developer says, and I think we've got some along. There's like one developer had like the 15 houses in a row. There's an easement on the back of all 15 houses.
Yeah.
Right, which is a conservation, which says that homeowner can't go in there and put a structure on it, for example. It has to be open. Now, there's different conservation easements. Some you can walk on and some you can't. So,
okay, and they're spelled out.
and it's
Fine.
spelled out. That's the database we're trying to build, because there's a lot of those and it gets confusing.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
That I understand completely, but the other myriad of easements, because a lot of those are strictly access easements. You have to get across one property, get to the next, like that easements for that, and a million utilities, can't be in the ground or overhead access. And those do encumber the property. Correct. And frankly, does that matter in terms of getting rid of it? Well, it goes to the value of the property. Is it worth doing anything with this property? It looks just fine. Oh, wait, there's high power lines going over the top of it. You can never do anything there. Can't sell it. I can't build a structure there.
Right.
So there's some things like that I think are worth At least knowing that they're there.
Oh, no, I absolutely agree. I have two different points. One is you don't make decisions on selling or, selling an easement. But pick a property, then from part of the town staff input is we're interested in that, please tell us where the easements are. So they can go into their database and give us a plot and say, hey, here's all the easements, here's all, and then the lawyers review and say, here's the encumbrances. So that has to be part of the process. And and utility easements, conservation easements, codicils, covenants. I mean, my property has a covenant on it from 20 years ago, right? So everything has something. It does get a little complicated, but I think that should be in the details. We need to make that clear that once we,
We do have that in C, town-owned property. We added that because I made some revisions based on our discussions that I have. Spreadsheet should be packaged numerous maps. The package shall also include an appendix that catalogs all conservation easements. So we haven't mentioned that we're going to get.
Oh, conservation easement.
Conservation easement.
So maybe it's the package. Once the package happens, it should just be all easements. Because they'll look it up and they'll know.
right, well, it's all easements and encumbrances. Because it may, right,
Absolutely right.
yep, all right.
One of the things we're getting from the
From the town
from
staff.
the town staff, and there's this thing saying, here's the things we're getting, refers to that.
Yep, so I'll add in related and encumbrances into this.
Right.
All right, so we're moving on.
So let's see, once they're prioritized, then it kind of goes through a stack process, right? So first is the property currently in use? Right, which would be nice to know. Now, it may be that it's only used for storage of sand or something, right? I mean, so there's a lot of different kinds of uses. So we get that input. Is it still required? You could say, yeah, we're using it, but don't worry about it. We can do it someplace else. I mean, again, from the town staff. So that's the yes, no. If they say it's still required, then, again, I made a leap of faith here that says, what if the TOP disagrees with that assessment? Where do you go? Well, I guess it's the town council. So that was that sidebar that says, yeah, I know they said he wanted, but something, I don't think, we didn't think that was necessary. So I threw that in there and didn't go on from that. If it's not still required, then it says it's still in play, then it doesn't have any future plan. All right, so that was the next question. And obviously, when you go out, you ask both at the same time, but that's a operational thing, not a flow chart thing. If so, then we get the plans. All right, so we can assess that. And then I had to do an off-page link. So that's the program. Then the next thought again, following the thing was, is the property suitable for housing? Right, so that was, another analysis, which then goes to staff and the housing authority to, take a position on. So if no, right, and I suppose one could have a sidebar like we had before that says, do we want to escalate that?
I just have a side note here. Would it be appropriate at this point, to know what it's zoned at when we're looking at if it could be built, if it could be,
That's part of the,
would that be?
that's part of the
also-
package.
That would be part of this section.
Matter of fact, it's in the database. If you
Okay.
look in the database that you're gonna get, it'll have the zone
Perfect,
in there. So
perfect.
hopefully the only information not there is the encumbrances, easements and other stuff, because it's a little complicated.
Right.
And also, whose zoning rules apply? It might not be the town, it could be city of Groton, could be Groton, could be knowing.
I didn't think we were gonna talk about city property,
Well, we do have property in the city that.
but it's town owned.
Town owned.
Yeah,
that's,
yeah, town-owned property.
Oh,
There's town-owned property in Knowing Fire District.
I'm sorry. I see your point.
Yeah,
That it could be in
Town-owned
the city,
property.
so different zoning.
Who's ever zoning it is, so.
yeah, whatever it is.
Okay.
Just a question, and not, I don't want to say I'm not in favor of housing, because I am, but the way this reads, it prioritizes housing before recreation and before.
And it was just the way I read it in the document. I
I'm just wondering, this is just for discussion.
We should put conservation first if you really want.
No, I'm just saying, should it be, should this be, this is a discussion and there's 4 or 5, or however many paths. I'm thinking from flow chart, it's not housing recreation.
You want to go in parallel?
Yeah, I'm thinking it's.
Yeah.
That's what the options are, goes this way.
Okay, we can go, we can go that way.
I would agree with that, because if someone reads this in 20 years, the intention is this one over that one?
And that wasn't the intent, although
Now, let me ask kind of a legal question, which maybe you know. One of the way it's said here is it suitable for recreation? Suitable for housing, and suitable might not be the right word. Maybe desirable might be the right word. And I say that just because all federal property, every time you have a building you want to knock down, the first thing you must do for any federal building is say, oh, before we knock it down, can we put people in it? Now, 90% of the time, the answer is, well, of course not. It's in a military base. It's in a secure area. It's in whatever. That's fine, but we must ask the question documented first. Is that kind of a filter that should be put through first anyway, just in terms of
What was
evaluation?
that again? I'm sorry.
Is there a mandate of some kind out there that says, if in fact it's desirable for housing, I'm not going to say suitable, federal says suitable, but desirable for housing, is that a first filter that we really we need to find out first? It doesn't mean it goes to housing, but to identify that housing might be a good thing.
But if it's definitely hands off, is that what you're saying?
I'm saying, does that, in terms of the order here, that it showed up first, as opposed to being, is it good for housing? Is it good for this? Is it good for that? What's it good for?
I took this to mean,
we're going to take the parallel.
We're gonna have that to be
We're just gonna have
review options.
Okay.
And then from there, it's
And
gonna
we'll branch out equal
Yeah.
to all three.
And I think maybe we'll make it, so summary housing, not even suitable housing.
Or instead of 3 triangles, one could vision 1 triangle, property desirable / suitable for housing, comma, recreation, comma, and just make it 1 funnel, 1 spot.
That's the mechanics. We can figure it out. But the thought was, your thought was, is there a legal restriction
Yeah.
on a building that we have to go through before we do anything else, which would make it a priority
That's what I'm
item?
asking. Yeah. Do you know if that's the case?
I'm sorry.
Is there a legal requirement? If there's a building on the property that's being sold, that has to be evaluated for a housing before anything else?
yeah, I mean, although, some of that, would that occur in the evaluation process in the first place?
No, that, we're talking about a legal requirement, not what we want. We're gonna do, if it's not a legal requirement, one have to do a filter.
What's an example of that?
Well, I don't know any intent. I'm saying on federal property.
Yeah, on federal property, so,
I went to knock down a submarine school building.
yeah,
And toxic waste. I mean, everything's awful about it. One of the things I had to document first was that this cannot be made suitable for housing.
I think that would come out in the detail, though. If we have a summary review process and you have housing and recreation, various items. If you're gonna determine if it's fit for housing, you would find that out, wouldn't you?
Well,
You start to investigate it.
You would. Well, that's why I'm kind of asking. Maybe we don't know, and maybe we'll just go the way we're saying, going, just find out if it's good for any one of these things. If it's good for housing,
I would suspect not. Now that I think,
but I don't know.
heard of such a thing.
But for federal, it is.
No, but we're not federal.
But we're not federal, so I just.
We're way below
Way
federal.
below federal. It's if there's something out there somewhere, I just wanted to make sure that if that's accidentally, you ended up with exactly the right thing here. But if it's, nobody knows anything, and certainly if you haven't heard of that, then let's go as we're saying.
well, we're not gonna propose housing on Route 95, for instance.
Things like that. Something like that. For me, I don't want to propose any housing that you can't take the grocery store from. If you already have those.
So maybe Larry, it's just one big box,
Oh, I see.
review options, kind of what Council Borderland, and then in parentheses, you'll have housing, recreation, whatever, because it can be anything, right? And then from there, it's gonna be staff review, parks review, whatever.
Yeah,
You could say in the text somewhere that the TOP can take any priority on this they want. you know, this is a general flow path. But the tope on each instance of each property they review can develop their own, you know, priority, the sequence. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I kind of think just for user feasibility and to make the chart. And also, you don't want to be bogged down in a long chart either, so see how this, this triangle's bigger. I kind of just vision that to be a one-stop basin, catch basin of all recreation, housing, and then, is it staff review, staff Parks and Rec, staff GH.
Maybe it's
review.
it is as simple as that thing at that step.
Yeah.
Take all these things that say,
Right,
what's it good for?
right,
And
just
that's
in
what
one
code
box.
does.
Yeah.
Comes up, what's it good for?
All right, I'll take a shot at that. The next step after that was, and I'm trying to remember if I stuck this in or got it from the document. There's maintenance. We always forget about maintenance costs sometimes. So I thought, that potential liability of maintenance costs to the town, based upon what it is, usually if it's recreation, even open space has maintenance costs to it. So I put that in there, and I honestly don't remember whether I grabbed that out of the document.
Yeah, I'm wondering, Larry, if that's included in, if this is all one, one triangle. That liability maintenance is part of the discussion on Parks and Rec, part of the discussion on housing.
Or it could be, one could see it two ways. I can see all three. I also could see the property suitable for housing and the property suitable for recreation or open space as one triangle. And then the liability maintenance cost is separate. So then you're kind of really weighing like, you got two separate action items going on, I see.
Yeah, because it does impact the decision. I mean,
Right, that liability and cost
yeah.
and maintenance.
I think that one actually might be something to be identified. It influences the decision.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't make the decision.
Right,
So maybe that one is separate from what's the property good for. That's already thinking about what else can we do with it? Potential liability or maintenance, or are you thinking potential maintenance for the other things? No, this is.
No, but whatever makes it through the thing is you come up with whatever it is,
Yeah.
whatever the use is.
Yeah.
That we often forget about ongoing future costs.
so like,
Not today's-
contrast right now, we're probably eating. We have to maintain it, we have to plow it, we have to mow it,
Well,
right?
in fact, that's what I'm saying, this potential liability maintenance, I think that goes way up top in terms of identifying a priority.
Okay.
It's really expensive for us to use this piece of property for nothing,
Like schools.
like a school,
Then
then cheaper to put it up the top as opposed to some little piece of a park that.
So do you think that triangle should come before the property suitability?
You gotta have something to match it against. I mean, it's almost, I can't tell you the maintenance unless you tell me what you're gonna use it for, right?
Oh,
It's gonna change.
I guess that's the difference, whether if we're going to use it.
I mean,
One is, what's the cost and liability of what it is now? And the other one is weighing it at the cost and liability.
In the
of what's
future.
it going to be?
That,
So those are two different things.
those are two different things. So there, you're right, that probably should be up front. On the first page. Sorry, I didn't change the page when I.
And that liability might also state something like, again, not going too deep into the weeds, but also if there's identified brownfields already, that liability would be
Right.
identified as a liability in there.
I kind of had that under input from town staff. Yeah, all those, like that's an encumbrance. If it's a brownfield, et cetera, that's like, oops.
Right.
But that's not quite the same thing as maintenance costs. So I think maybe you're right. That should be up front as current
Right.
versus future. So I think this one is potential means future. But there ought to be somewhere in here on the first page is current.
And I think this is great because last night we were talking about Groton Heights and applying for grants extra, right? The remediation cost is more than Thyra Mahan anticipated. And so to me, I think that liability, brownfield remediation, whatever, is like a top thing when anything's being decided. I almost see that as like, I mean, when you go to buy a house, the things you look at is like, does it have this? Does it have asbestos? Does it have lead? Is it got what's that thing in the ground? I can't think of the thing. You have to have this radon. You look at like, is it close to a waste dump? So that liability cost all right off the top. So I kind of see that as it is a priority because we're having trouble getting rid of the land, the property because of
Because
the
nobody wants to pay the
liability.
Right.
So we should identify that.
All right, so I'll add that up front. And the potential for this future thing is a little bit different thought. Again, it's
Based on.
based upon the decision, the use characteristics. What does that mean, right? For example,
I like that.
housing. Oh, I want to put housing there. You realize we got to run water lines and sewer lines,
Yeah.
which is pretty expensive.
Right.
So one has to put that into the decision process, says, do we want to do a bond issue of $10 million to run a sewer line? It needs to be a consideration.
Well, and the other thing is this potential is like last night, again, I hate to refer to last night, it's just fresh in my head, is that property comes available and we're applying for grants right now. If I have all these kind of pinged out top 5 or 10 out of this database here, and we say these are the 10 we're really trying to move to, give, to, GCA, GHA, or whatever, and we know up front, we could be already applying for some grants to remediate, because we already assessed that liability before we even thought about the use.
Okay,
But-
yep. So liability up front,
I feel. I don't-
current one up front, and then future liabilities.
Yeah.
down below.
Potentially.
Yeah, that's, I think
That way nobody can point and say, oh, you're gonna do that, well, great, you know how much that's going to cost to knock down the building? Knock down the old.
And I think it- and I think it would actually maybe not slow things down, right? Like, imagine if we already had this kind of pinged out ahead of time.
Okay, I'm sorry, folks. We were talking about this page and had the other page up. I'm not good at this.
Yeah, you're doing great.
We're looking at the paper.
Okay, so that's that. That actually, we're now on the next page. Okay. So the next page. All right. Development options add value to the town. What the hell does that mean?
What the options are, and do they add value to the town? If so, then.
So now again, for me, and again, I'm just thinking, because we're just brainstorming and I'm not expecting that you guys are gonna follow me, but I almost feel like if does it add value to the town? Like, I don't want to get rid of something I own until I determine if I want it first, right? So I feel like that whole process maybe should be ahead. So I kind of envision that triangle ahead of the property suitability, recreation, or suitable housing. Is there a value to this to the town? Yes. What's the value? Well, we have the liability first. We check the liability. Is this a value to the town? Yes. What's the value? Oh, housing, or is it recreation? I kind of feel like we should identify that earlier on.
I think this is, honestly, I think it's in the right place because
Okay.
you've done all this. And that came out with what? Right now, it's a plot.
Yep.
We're evaluating it. We think you don't really need it as a park, but we need it as.
Well,
Light
let's
industrial.
take the Noang school part, right?
Right.
We actually kind of went through this analysis and I looked at it and said, look, here's the value, economic value to the town for developing it, right? There was 2 or 3 different options. Here's the value to the town of keeping it. And I think if I remember right, I netted out that, gee, it's plus the development option provided a $10,000 a year benefit to the town over leaving it natural. Then it becomes, is it worth it to the, now the citizens have to say, is it worth it to the town for 10 grand a year? Right? So it's not like, oh, I'm going to get $1 million in tax revenue. You got to look at the cost of the town. So that's really what that's really, I think, the intent there to say, what's the net benefit to the town?
I think I misspoke, so I want to apologize. I reread that wrong. Development options add value to the town. I guess what I was reading, so that's already being developed. I was saying, is the property have a value in keeping it as a town? Unknown, like what do we want to do with it? I guess I didn't read the development process.
This is, we
Yeah.
assumed,
We already cycled down, so I didn't catch that. I apologize.
I just have an issue with value and how we calculate value. One over another, Some have said, we look at school children. And school children cost so much, the number 15,000 a year or something.
That's about right.
Yeah, well, it's not, because the next incremental student is free.
Yep. Well, not free. There is an
Well,
increment, but anyway.
you probably can't measure it, but just be careful in monetizing families. You know, this family's worth $100. This family's worth minus 100. Okay. And I don't know if that's in this value analysis, but we gotta be, to me, we gotta be careful with that.
I didn't look at that word value as meaning necessarily money. Is it a value
You
to
didn't-
the town saying, yeah, it's a great value.
Well,
Now, we really.
Okay, fine. Then how do you measure? You don't use dollars to measure value? That's okay.
There's dollars and there's, I mean, if you say, okay, this is going to cost the town, like you said, $10,000 a year. So, okay, is it worth it? My town for $10,000 a year to have a tennis court there? Maybe.
Right, yes.
But
Yeah,
you gotta get it, you want to eliminate.
Remember, I'm an advocate for housing and families.
Right.
So
So-
I'm not in favor of trying to monetize families, one way or another.
Yeah, I can understand that. And I also see that word value in meaning, like if the town said we're gonna develop it. And so development could be that we're developing it, right? There's not an outside developer. We could be the developer.
Right.
In that box. And the value is. We have a pool or tracks or ball field, so the value is more recreation space. I mean, so I guess it could be, I can see where you're going as well. It could be a value. Meaning a money value, but it also could be a value as a bonus to the town.
Maybe we should specify it.
Yeah, that could be.
So I think there's better terminology, like really you're doing a feasibility review or analysis.
Yeah.
on the pros and
There's two
cons.
parts. That which you can quantify, you do, but then there's another component, as I mentioned, that you can't.
That's right.
Then it becomes a judgment call or,
Right, but in summary, I mean, high level, we're analyzing. And determining the pros and cons of whatever this is, whether it's Parks and Rec, open space, right? There's got to be a more general term that we can use for that box.
Value is good, except you need to then put a little amendment afterwards. It's both monetary and non-monetary and services or something, find some other, whatever the other general term is. One is money
Right,
and the other is not.
right.
Just have to make sure, since we're asking that question, it gets right into the little box.
okay, we gotta think of a word that.
You can see a value in, putting shrubs in, right? Because there are trees, because
That's right.
it provides shade. It's a value, but it's a pleasure versus a.
But we can also quantify it, by the way.
Right.
I
What
could
if you
use
say
it-
review the value of
Well,
the
it's
property?
$20
reuse?
for a shrub, but it doesn't-
That's what you're doing, right? You're reviewing the value of the reuse decision.
Yeah, which has two components, monetary and non-monetary.
That's right.
And
So should this box be broken into two separate sections?
non-monetary. I mean,
I don't think you need to, because it can.
well, I think the text can be.
It's within there,
Yeah,
as long
I
as
think
you
the text
specify.
can add that in there.
Right, yeah.
Just to have both value statements.
I think the word development options is what's going to get people.
Yeah, it just meant you're doing something with the property.
I guess no matter what, this is gonna be transparent, right? However these calculations are done, however we arrive at a
Yep.
value,
Yeah, sure.
it's gonna be public info.
We could just take out the word development, says, does the option
Development option.
add value to the town?
That's right. That does it.
Or how about development options and integrity to the town? I don't know if that word, never mind. I'm gonna think of another way
I
to,
think if you take, like you say, take out the word development, I'd be,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's gone. I take it
all right,
out.
so it's just options and value to the town?
But do we want to put
Yeah.
value to
Yeah.
both monetary
And non-monetary.
Okay.
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
That's good.
All right, now, then bring in the lawyers.
yeah.
At some point, before we get too far down the road, let's have legal review
Oh, sure.
of everything that happened, transpired, the facts, et cetera, to see if we missed something or didn't miss something. So that was there. Then, now here's a part that says, how does this get reported back? As a report and recommendations to the town council? I mean, you tell me.
Just a question, I'm going to back up. When do we get the public involved? In these lower areas, like,
Well, that's where I had, what's not in here is the actual process of doing the sale of the development. So the question is, clearly, when you're saying, we're gonna sell something. At that point, we may be required to have a public hearing. So that whole aspect of it, I went, I didn't think that that the TOP is a recommender, not a decider of what to do with the property. If I have that correct?
Correct, but I think at some point the TOP will have hearings, and I think we mentioned in here to get the public views, because if we go too far and the TOP makes all these decisions and we're down here and providing value, and we decide to build a housing unit X.
Maybe that's where it is. Maybe it's that value box, decision box. That's where we say, hey, we've gone through all this work. There's a set of data and information. Before we go to the town council with a recommendation, let's have it, and you gotta be a little careful because public hearings are very formal with very specific rules with lead times, sometimes days, et cetera. So how we want to do it as a recommending body, I think if we do it here, we can do it expeditiously. But once we get down to here, I'm sorry, when we get down to the town council, all of a sudden there's rules to follow. Because
I would like to give the council the feedback
from the, yes,
meeting in the community. So, and maybe it's not a public hearing, maybe it's just I don't know, better terminology.
an open meeting.
Well, this chart is kind of, I mean, let's just say a developer comes to the town and wants to buy something. That's kind of how I see this process. They're gonna say, oh, I like this land here. Then this flow chart would start. But until that point, I don't think that it would be almost like another process that we're talking with in conjunction with this, because like what you said, and I know like what happened with some of the other properties is there were two counselors that were on it, part of the economic development committee, and the council was giving, here's your preferred developer. Okay. And I was like told, I had no backstory, just kind of in an executive session, here's your preferred developer. This is what we did, but I didn't get to see the other developers. So that's another part of this that I'm concerned about as well as with the community is, it almost seems like there's a separate part of this after this is over.
Absolutely.
That we're missing.
Well, it's not in, okay, let's think it right up here, if you're following my cursor here. Up here, I can add the public, I won't say hearing, I'll say public input, some flexibility for the committee.
Well, I feel like this chart would be flowing like this TOP committee that's meeting quarterly or how often, they should be like looking at properties and, you know, discussing with the town and kind of assessing the property, even when there's no development in sight. We should be this group should be meeting. That's how I see it. This group is not meeting just because there's a property ready for sale.
No, right?
So this chart, I think, fits really well for that. My concern is, okay, a developer comes and says, we like lot number on your grid here. And this thing starts to happen and the town says, yes, it's suitable for blah, developer comes in. How is that preferred developer getting, where's the public input? That's a huge missing piece.
Well,
And
that's fair. So
I don't know about that scenario. A developer comes in uninvited, there's no RFP. This person just walks in off the street, he's looked at our maps, sees some property the town owns and wants to buy it.
right, and economic development is working with them and they say, okay, we're gonna go to the get started RFP process. I mean, I'm just looking at all scenarios. I'm just making sure that we're covering,
Yeah.
you know.
it doesn't cover that.
Right.
So you want to use this committee to cover that example?
It could.
It could.
It just means, okay, we're gonna come up with 5 or 10 things and start working through them every few months. Okay. Somebody comes in, says, I think that's a great property that I might want to incorporate in my plan. It's more like an incorporate.
So it's almost,
We just go up to the top.
yeah, it's almost way up here where the
The priority just changed.
priority, yeah, it's under the priority thing that says, whoops, from the side, we've got some.
Right.
I'm trying to think of the right word.
I got nothing.
Outside, I don't know, surprise bid or something.
Well, it wouldn't be a bid at that point. It would be somebody come up with an idea and we'd say, okay, not so fast.
So here's a great example. There was the knowing school. Someone wanted to buy a parcel, a neighbor.
Yeah.
How would that work in this flow chart? Because I think everyone, if there's a fair.
No, it fit perfectly.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, that's my example of a random,
Yeah, a land of butter wants a
Right.
piece.
and that's valued property, and I think it deserves.
And exactly, as it turned out, exactly this thing.
Yeah.
Is kind of what we discussed
Yeah.
one meeting in the planning and zoning commission, planning. there.
Right.
Because, okay, what do we care? And in both cases, there were little triangles, little pieces. I actually had an issue with one because maybe it wouldn't in the future, it would have come out in this. It was a public meeting. That's to do with So it really just condensed
Yeah.
into, for that particular thing, but yeah.
It would flow this way.
It
Yeah.
just gets stuck in.
Give me a good term for that. Kind of an outside input, to the prioritization part, right? Something comes in from the side.
Yeah.
New requests.
Outside interest.
Outside interest.
Outside interest.
Not bad. Somebody's, because all that,
Because it could be a landowner, like you said, that example, not
Yeah.
necessarily a developer.
at that point, it's not like, oh, this landowner is offering us $100,000. It's this landowner's interest.
Outside interest in the parcel, actually.
Correct.
Okay, which goes way up on top.
Okay,
Okay.
okay, all right, thanks.
All right, nope, that's a good point. We're at if we get down to the end, we're talking about a report goes to the council, then the whole RFP process, all stuff is not in here. That's a different, I mean, who the developer is, the public input we just heard about,
So then,
that's a separate
Number two or whatever.
so then
process.
I almost feel like kind of, with what you provided with your chart, it might be nice with the step process when we do finalize our document and adding those other steps beyond this grid when we start getting into the, how the public, and how it'd be very nice and helpful.
You were saying, but where the public comes in, and I just wonder. They can be, I mean, the meetings will be public to that extent, but in terms of really putting something out until we have the report.
Yeah.
Let's Tope has a report. There's not much for them to comment on.
Well, I think these 2 pages do that. I mean, so what you've gone into is, once the report's out, it goes into the town council receives Tope recommendation.
Full public hearing, yeah,
We should turn this over to you.
Yeah, why don't we,
yeah, I'd love to, yeah.
Maybe.
yeah,
It's actually limited.
so,
You guys worked out, it's almost like you finished. Where you left off. Were you guys working together?
Yes, we were. Close collaboration.
Because I'm just seeing it kind of.
well, I don't have a fancy flow chart.
No, yours is
Okay.
great.
I use PowerPoint.
It's better than the chart that I did. Which was nothing. Yeah, handwritten, nothing.
Yeah, all right, so the start here, that box and the box below it are basically he's going into a lot more detail. So, right, the Tope performs the review of underutilized town property, recommends a future use. You can see the bullets. Incidentally, I'm not on, I don't have the password.
Oh, did you email this?
I emailed it.
Oh, we can pull it up. Can
You
you
said
pull-
all of us, yeah.
Are you able to pull it up, Mr. Dunn?
I didn't get that.
I emailed it today to you.
Oh, hold on. I'm looking.
No, I think I can do it. Sure.
Yeah, it's really shot.
I don't, let me do a search.
Shrink, there it is. We can forward it to you.
Yeah.
You got it?
I don't have it.
All right, we'll make sure it comes. You're sending it?
Don't have it.
Yeah, if you send it to me, I can just throw it up on the screen.
You want to-
Let's forward it to you.
Dunn, what's your email again?
Larry Dunn at dunhome.com. Try and make things simple.
Wife's laptop, so it doesn't get my email.
Uh,
Send. I don't want to give you an emoji.
Oh, come on.
Jeez.
Smiley face.
Let's come up and send an emoji. No, I don't want to send an emoji. Okay. Hal, I have it from Hal. Let me open this up. And
Oh, there it is.
Oh,
here we go. Isn't technology?
I
Okay.
love it. This is great.
I love the Zoom hybrid meeting thing.
It has taken, the involvement, because I go back and sometimes rewatch these meetings and take extra notes. So it's nice. It really is.
Oh, I think it's great.
Computer spreads for planning and zoning because I want to have Google Maps up at all.
Oh, that would be really cool.
Because when I was zooming, I was always saying, hey, wait a minute. here's what that looks like on the street.
Why couldn't you guys have your meeting in here and open it up on the big screen?
We have it in here.
Oh, good.
That's my spot.
Oh, okay.
I'll move next time.
Yeah.
Okay, so this,
got it.
this is from your document, okay? I tried to faithfully follow it except for what you see in blue.
Okay.
So the start here box is the TOP, and they perform review of unused or unutilized town property and recommend a future use. Committee is 9 plus 3 area residents. They develop a consensus recommendation on property reuse that satisfies process goals and criteria. See page 4, we can get to that. Use standard consistent evaluation criteria, see page 5. Involve, consult with town staff, representatives of ABCs and other entities as needed desired. Recommendation is reviewed by town attorney for title constraints and other legal issues. Then they vote on the recommendations. And so my added questions is that I would assume the majority rules, 7 out of 12, right? And minority reports allowed, yes or no? Yes, like, right?
I would think so. Yeah.
Oh, I would,
Yeah.
I think that'd be great.
Okay,
I support that. What do you guys think?
I would agree.
Scott, do you support that or? Oh, he's
Scott mouthed the.
He's
I'm
Yeah.
muted, but I was nodding my head, sorry.
Silent nod.
I've got a lot of background noise, so I'm keeping myself muted, sorry.
So to all that is the some other inputs and details like the property review methodology, which is on page 7, and more details on Larry's flow chart. List of unused or unutilized town property. Town attorney, we talked about that, provides a written statement on title constraints and other legal issues. And various reference materials, planning and zoning, plan of conservation and development, zoning regulations. I added obviously others, inland wetlands, economic development studies and surveys, housing market reports and studies, other sources as needed. Not meant to be constraining, use whatever reference you need.
I like the inland and wetlands that are in there.
Yeah.
Nicely done.
Okay, so then the report goes to the next, we go to the next page. Mr. Dunn, would you do the honors?
I'm sorry. There we go.
Okay, so the town council receives the TOP recommendation, and the way I followed your text was they hold a public hearing on the recommendation. Okay. So after the public hearing, there's 3 outcomes. Either the town council votes to retain the property for a certain use. Again, language from the document, which might be, well, town wants to keep it for ball fields. Or the town council authorizes an 824 review because the recommendation was to sell. So now I'm got a little hosed up here on, we talk about the town council. When you talk about the town council, we're talking about the cow. I don't know if we need to decide that tonight, but it's been a while since I've been involved in authorizing an 824 review. I don't know if it's a council resolution or it's just a cow thing. But anyway, so in that case, the P&Z would perform the 824 review and transport the report to the council. And the other third outcome is the town council votes to reject the recommendation. TOP is notified with reason. Okay. So if we're doing the 824, we're selling it. We then go to the next page. Perfect. Okay, so here, there's 2 choices. A is after consideration of the 824 report, the town council votes to sell, lease the property. And the other B is they vote to keep it. Okay, so there's 2 different paths. If they vote to sell it, the TC requests that the RTM considers the sale lease proposal and provides an opinion. Page 9 is how the RTM, some background on the RTM. Then the RTM considers the proposal to sell, lease, and returns findings to the town council. And I've added in 30 days, I don't know, if 60 days, but some period of time, right? And the findings are, I didn't know what else, but just say meeting minutes and recording of votes, right? Or are they going to come up with a findings, document something? I don't know, and maybe we should talk to the RTM about this, what they would do. But what constitute findings? That's okay, moving on. The RTM agrees with the sell lease recommendation. According to the document, the TC holds another public hearing on the proposed sale lease. And we go to C or D, which we'll get to in a minute, or the RTM disagrees with the sell lease recommendation. After which the TC can reject the RTM's disagreement and still proceed with the sale lease, or the town council can vote to reject the sale lease proposal. That, in other words, agree with the RTM.
Question, if there's 3/4 of the RTM disagrees, I don't think the town council can overrule, can they?
Is what?
If the RTM has 3/4 of the vote that says no, can the town council override that?
Well, that's why I don't know what the findings, what comes back from the RTM? Is it a vote, a hard vote? Is it a recommendation? What is that? And I don't, well, you could, I don't know. Good
Well, I'm
question.
gonna reach out, based on what you said previously, I'm gonna reach out to the RTM for some clarification on that.
Pardon?
I'm gonna reach out to the RTM.
Yeah.
for Clarification on
Yeah.
your earlier question and this.
Yeah,
Find out what happened. I think it goes null and void. I think it's over.
remember
Yeah, I think they can reject.
You just say no and it's
Well,
over.
but there's a clip.
that this
Yeah, I
is,
mean, once they meet, when they meet that level,
Right.
it's, the council can't override that.
Yeah, I didn't think so. That's why. Yeah.
But I'll find out what that is.
yeah, okay, yeah, all right. Okay, so now we have, if it's starting back to B, if after consideration of the 824 report, the TC Town Council votes to keep the property for certain use, TOP notified. And as you've noticed, I've used the word end here. That's the end of this process.
Oh.
Okay, so we know we had a successful run. Yeah,
Or not.
yeah.
Yeah.
Successful run of the software. So we come out of the town council public hearing, go to C or D. Based on the results of the public hearing, the town council votes to authorize the town manager to implement sale lease recommendation, right? Or based on the results of the public hearing, the town council votes to reject the sale lease proposal, at which case they notify the TOP with reasons.
One question, I think this is fantastic. I'm just wondering if is there further, sometimes there's negotiation here. Sometimes there's further negotiation where it's back.
There can be iterations, yes. Yeah, I mean, right. I didn't have enough ink to.
No, this is terrific. I'm just.
No, there's definitely iterations.
I think the option he's talking about is that if the town council says, I'm sending it back to the TOP for additional evaluation or data or something. Is that, would that?
Yes, yeah. Whatever some of the details have to be reworked a little bit more and a better deal.
Yeah.
you know,
So,
whatever.
so there could be an option coming out of C, because it doesn't matter if they rejected it, to the TOP for reevaluation or something.
Out of C, no, the town council is voting to authorize the town manager to sell it.
Oh, okay, well then
Yeah,
let's see.
We've gotten to the end.
From D, so you
Yeah.
would go from D back to the
So we're there, okay, yep,
Yeah.
okay.
So then, I mean, you can look at the rest of the pages, but these are direct cut and paste from your document. I think. Let me see, hold it. Did I have another?
Yeah, so some of that may change because I did make revisions to this document based upon our
Yeah.
prior meeting, but that's all.
Yeah, and I don't think I turned everything black ink, but I left in the cross out. Okay, I didn't.
It's good to keep all of our notes that we've erased over
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
It's,
So,
who knows what. that in there.
what this showed me is that the process works. You know,
Oh, nicely done.
Yeah, very, very.
Thank you. Thank you. That was a lot of work, both of you, for putting the time in to do your charts. It's very helpful.
So we have a few revisions to make on the charts, but overall pretty good.
It does look very good. I agree.
So any other comments on the charts? I don't know if people have time or how you want to handle this, but I did make your changes that we talked about. If you wanted to review this, we could do it now, or we can take this. We've been here an hour and a half and review it, provide comments the next time we meet, dive into this document and vet it further.
Yeah.
That sounds like a plan. Thoughts?
I think that's good.
I guess what we can do is I'll email this out to everybody.
Well, we only did part A, right?
Yes.
So
We were gonna do numeral 1 first, and I did make other changes. I think it was based upon our changes previously. But yeah, but I just realigned it to have A, B, C. It's a little, it flows a little better now.
And you'll add all these charts. Now, is there any way that we can get the fixes, the amendments from Mr. Dunn before you upload them onto the site for folks to review when we add them to the minutes?
Yeah, I can do that.
When do you need them by?
She needs them by the Friday before our Wednesday meeting.
Okay.
So it's.
Let's see.
let's make note.
Let me look up, let me stop sharing.
Oh, someone's hand is up.
Yeah, Mary Ellen's hand is up.
We probably should
Does
take down
it
the
ever go
screen
down?
share. We'll take down the screen share so we can see. Oh, we got a couple hands.
Oh, yeah. Genevieve.
All right, so let me go here. We're gonna go Mary Ellen. I don't have to do anything. She just has to. Mary Ellen, you are free to speak. If you have some comments, you have your hand up.
There.
Yes, hello.
Okay.
I'm Jim Furlong, Mary Ellen's husband.
Hi, Jim.
Hello, good evening. I haven't heard everything tonight. I did want to make one statement, which at the Tuesday night meeting, I was getting nervous about the not flippant, but very easy discussion about swapping land. When the town decided to swap some land at the high school for other land, I feared seriously that this would result in a very frequent tendency to swap land as though it was, minted coins or something, or baseball cards. And I heard an awful lot of this at that meeting, including one case where one of the counselors asked if you could unprotect land in order to protect it later. That's getting very, very disrespectful of land. I think that if you want to do any swaps, they have to be very important and not just easy swapping.
Casual swapping.
Casual is the word. That's all I wanted to say at this point.
And Jim, thanks for your comment. I think that's one of the reasons why this committee was put together, so that items can flow through this property reuse and be properly vetted. So thanks for your comments.
Thank you.
Genevieve Surf? You should be able
Yes,
to.
can
move
you hear
forward.
me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. This is the first time I've joined this meeting, although I've wanted to join for a long time. I think you all are doing incredible work. I had a couple of ideas as I was watching, even though I haven't read the whole document. But where we run into trouble with the oral school, for instance, was that there was an easement on the property to the state of Connecticut, which I don't know when it had been made, but that wasn't made clear enough about that property. And Mr. Restler kept claiming that he had 70 acres, when in point of fact, 37 of those were an easement to the state. And he advertised it on billboards and all. So it's very important, I think, to find out those easements, not just the town easements, but state easements or any other easement that there could be. So that was one thing. The only other comment that I have is in terms of getting the public involved. I think that the public, if the public doesn't know what's going to be built on the property, if say you decide to sell it to a developer and the public doesn't know what's going to be built, and all of a sudden you sell it to a developer and the developer decides to build a 3-ring circus, or I don't know what, cement grinding plant on it, then suddenly the public gets worked up, because when they know what the actual plan is, that's when they get their hackles up. So you might want to take that into consideration if you want a really smooth process. I don't know whether you want to, since it's town-owned property, you might want to engage a developer to do something that the whole town will agree to, including the people. So just to avoid problems down the line, you know, such as we had with the Mystic Oral School and still have. Just a suggestion, so that we
No,
won't be
Genevieve-
using up all your time in the future.
No, we appreciate your suggestion. I'm not sure if you heard enough. We did talk about on section 2 of this property reuse committee, we did discuss that the package will also include an appendix that catalogs all the conservation and related easements and encumbrances. So that's part of the goals and objectives to have as part of this process. And we certainly will be involved in the community. And part of the goals for this TOPE committee, once it's formed, is to be meeting on a quarterly basis in order to continue to review the list and to keep everyone informed of what's happening. So appreciate your comments and well heard, and we're moving in that direction.
I just wanted to add to that, I appreciate that as well, because one of my hopes for this committee was that when we identify a property and then we go out to RFP, you know, we've had the oral school property sitting here for the state for a long time. And part of this TOPE committee could be looking at potential properties as well that are purchasable, that could be used for housing or whatever the plan is. And we should already be doing the back end work, as I call it, you know, to be proactive versus reactive and engaging the community of like, what did you want to see at the oral school? This could have happened 20 years ago, 15, 10, not when a developer comes in and is ready to buy it. We should be engaging earlier so that we know what the community kind of wants there, what can be put there, what easements are there. So I do agree that in some way that dialogue can start to happen early, you know, and that I think now that we hopefully establish a process where we have all the properties there, we'll kind of know like, okay, Mary Morrison is, you know, eventually going to be vacated. What do we envision there? Let's start the work now. Let's start the work now on SP Butler. It's sitting there. We should already be engaging the community. There should be workshops and ways of talking now, way before an RFP is written. And that's somewhere I haven't captured that in here, but I'd like to. I think we should know our properties the best and know what our community wants way before an RFP is even written.
Well, I think that's in the evaluation process, the prioritization.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's a slight difference here, because once you say
That's Larry done.
that the property is available or want to be available, then the question, and then there's an RFP process at the back end. So I think the question is there something we, you know, somewhere in the process that says we want to put some limits on the property use limits? For example, zoning has, start with, you got use limits.
Right.
I don't think you could do that up front, because you don't know, especially if it's going to be sold, you don't know who's interested in doing anything.
I'm not saying youth limits or anything like that. For example, just kind of like right now, I have friends that live by SP Butler. I grew up playing in that neighborhood. We as a community should start in this TOPE committee, could be starting, what do we envision being there? Because we do have the control of like what type of RFP we put out. Planning and zoning would say, this is what can be put there. Conservation, wetlands, just, you know, kind of talking, engaging the community before it's dropped onto their lap. That's, in communities that I've seen it done quite well, that's what they do in that community. They start to talk now. Mary Morrison eventually will be vacated. What's our plan? You know, we've been sitting on all these school properties with no plan, no community engagement. We can start to engage. It doesn't mean it's finalized, but it's a way of getting the pulse of the people, talking to our, you know, Groton Housing Authority ahead of time, you know, knowing what the pulse is there. I think we really should do that as a committee, and that's what I'm hoping. So,
If one of the, take that example, if that school is one of the top 5 priorities, would it not go through this process and answer your question?
I'm not saying it shouldn't, but I'm just saying if we didn't have what happened, and you know, I make the referral for this, and people rose up and said there's been a problem, we've had a ton of problems with properties, is why we're here. How come there's never been a process? I don't know how Groton's been actually operating. But what can be done outside of this process is community engagement, really talking with the Groton Housing Authority, talking with the neighbors of the area. That doesn't cost a dime to really know what the community wants ahead of time. And that can be done in conjunction with this and can start now. I mean, this process doesn't have to finalize to start engaging our community. So that's all I have.
Okay, yeah, and I think that'll be part of the process. The monthly, quarterly review will be part of the process you're
Right.
mentioning.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so let's review. Flow chart revisions, both have a little bit of flow
Oh,
chart.
I'm sorry, you
revisions.
said the Wednesday before, which would,
John,
It's always the-
stand up.
yeah, no, so that would be the Friday, so that December 1st, you need the flow charts updated by, is that
Yeah, our next meeting will be the 7th, so
7?
I need to provide them to her by the 1st, correct?
Let me put a day slop, so let me say.
Catherine.
Flow chart.
Now we realize that these actually match.
Yeah, that's really well.
Yeah. I'm still thinking you guys work together.
Well, it's one document. I mean, we worked off the same document,
Yeah, but that's where we started.
you know.
It's the program, so
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. If there's a way we can share the program so it's consistent, the flow.
Well, I'm just thinking, do I want to go to PowerPoint, because everybody has that, or use a flow charting program? And I'm kind of thinking probably PowerPoint, because then everybody doesn't have flow chart program.
Are you in, is that PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he sent it to me, right? It's PowerPoint.
I sent you a PDF.
Oh. he
Yeah.
sent it to me as PowerPoint.
That would be probably the best to be consistent. So that way future people can make changes, because everybody has PowerPoint, right?
Yeah, no, that's what I was just thinking, yeah. Even though it's harder to do.
I was gonna say, because any flow chart thing. Those missing with the flow charts,
That's a real flow
makes
chart.
sense. This is it.
Yeah.
And-
Even by design, right? Whether it's a triangle.
Absolutely. And so, and it kind of makes the flow better.
PowerPoint has flow chart symbols in it, so.
Okay, so I
that's
can
fine.
do that.
Yeah.
And make it just this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This kind of curls back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so just let's regroup. We have some more comments, but just so we're all on the same page. We'll revise the flow charts. We're gonna come up with our top 5 property listing that we all desire to move forward with. You're gonna take a look at the draft that I provided. If you can provide comments before the 1st on that, I'll make them before the 1st. Read over next week,
When's the next meeting?
the 7th.
7. If you can add to your PowerPoint, any comment?
I'm gonna back up,
Or
I'm
send
assuming
it to me, I
Genevieve
can-
and Mary Ellen, your hands up, and I'll just assume
Okay.
you're all set. If not, just say something in the chat and I'll acknowledge you. And you said there's other people? Okay.
Yeah.
John Goodrich. John, you're on.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. Just a suggestion, on the evaluation process, could we add a process for a historical review? You know, just bring up a couple properties. All the oral schools on a town property. It's now becoming more and more evident that it may have been a major area in the Pequot War. You know, the property that Councilor Bordelon brought up, that's an old Mystic, is actually where the men of Old Mystic marshaled before they went to Fort Griswold to help defend the fort in the Revolution. So I just think it'd be important to make sure we're not, you know, either doing something with a historically important piece of property that we're not aware of the history of, or find a way to, you know, protect it or celebrate it in any type of decision we make.
Okay, no, thanks for that suggestion. We will definitely
I think that's,
consider it.
I think that's a great consideration, and, you know, we just obtained that, what, the Wolfbrook property. And there was historical stuff on, you know, there, so I think that is another way to classify as well. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Historic significance.
Yeah. And value, oh, that word value to the town, no, I'm just kidding.
Catherine Pratt, you had your hand up. Do you have some comments?
Just quickly, yes. I really appreciate everything you're doing. But I just wanted to ask a question on the third. First off, I do appreciate what Jim Furlong said about the cavalier way that land swaps were being discussed or kind of easy way they were being discussed at the last town council. I don't think they should be undertaken lightly. You know, and I think the Merritt property kind of set an unfortunate precedent that way. But also in your document, the evaluation process draft document, the 3rd section says town-owned property and conservation easement listing. And then the wording is the attached listings be utilized as an ongoing database for review, evaluation, and assessment of properties that the town could consider utilizing for some other use. And I was just a little concerned, would the lands having conservation easements be included for regular review for other uses? I'm not sure if that was intended. I think Larry Dunn mentioned that at the last questioned that a little bit perhaps at the last, your last meeting. But it seemed to me that if these properties have conservation easements on them, they are intended to be protected for all time. I don't think they should be on the table for routine evaluation for other purposes. I understand that the law provides for certain situations where in extraordinary circumstances, the conservation, there's a legal process for changing their use. But so I was concerned about the wording and just was wondering if you could clarify that or.
Did. Yeah, Catherine, that's a good point. And just so you know, we did revise that. The copy that the committee has right now has changed the wording to say this package also includes an appendix that catalogs all conservation and related easements and encumbers for review. So we have removed that to the way it was worded previously. So the next iteration, please take a look at that and see if that's a little more, if it's more of your liking or comment as needed.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And you're gonna add these new minutes as well as the flow charts onto the agenda online for the next meeting, so like.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
All right, I see hands up, but I think everybody's spoken. So we're good. The only other one comment I wanted to add is, I don't know if, well, I got a couple things. I did receive today, and I'll email it out, the RFP process for purchasing from the city, from the town. So I'll get this to you, but I'll also email you copies. And I think I sent it to.
Can we also add this into the minutes, just because I think the people who are following this, that way it's all.
Yeah, and what else I could do is I talked to Town Manager Burt. He sent me where other existing RFPs have been placed. So I'll include that link for people to review, because that's going to be the next step, is us dialing in to the actual RFP details.
Right.
Yeah, that's the part that is next.
Yes. So that's what I'm
But
getting
the
at
flow
now.
chart,
So for next meeting, we're gonna probably fine tune this, but this shouldn't, if we have our work done before the first, this first part should be pretty much all set. We should be able to focus the majority of our time on the 7th on the RFP process, which is the
how often are we meeting every 2 weeks?
first and third of every month.
Okay, yeah, first and third, yeah.
So,
yeah.
go ahead.
My other question is, while we're doing this, would it be appropriate to pull, look at some, towns that one may consider, and I guess everyone's vision would be different, that have done a really great job at the process and moving land and developing. Should we look to see and request, look at like what their process is that they're currently following? It might be nice by the next meeting if we could have maybe 2 or 3 towns, just to see where we are and what we have written, not to say that we're going to follow it, but it is kind of nice to see, where they stand and what their language looks like.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And I know if you guys probably have way more experience with that than I do, but I think of, towns, in the area like Westerly, downtown. I think they've done a great job with development, but I don't know if you guys have any places that you'd recommend that we try to get.
Yeah.
Adding to the to-do list.
Yeah. I don't mind, and I can call myself, I'll call a town and say, can you send me your process?
Or it might be online for.
Yeah, it might be, yeah,
I'd find out if they don't have one.
right. Well, yeah.
I do know when I was on the council, I had the .gov email, that opened a lot of doors. You get a yahoo.com email from me and it's, who's that guy?
Yeah.
But you got a .gov email. They'll respond to you.
All right, good. The only other item I wanted to ask the two of you, we are allowed to make motions and add to the committee. So at some point, we want to make motions to bring these 3 gentlemen on as well as others. Some of the.
I'd like to make a motion. I definitely want to make a motion to bring in the 3 that are represented here tonight. And we did request others. You put out are they planning to come?
Yes, I'll reach out to them again. EDC had said they were going to appoint someone, but then I spoke to him and for one reason or other wasn't able to, so they're going to appoint someone else.
Okay,
So I'll reach out to them, 2 ones in EDC.
so we could just appoint them as they come or when they come.
Yes, and then the second part would be maybe at next meeting to discuss potential residents add to the committee. So
Well,
your motion, you're going to do?
Yeah, I would like to make a motion to add the 3 gentlemen that are present here tonight
As representatives of
of our
planning and zoning, conservation commission
and
and GHA.
GHA. Correct.
Okay, again.
Huh?
Join the club.
Okay.
I'll second the
Double what
motion.
you're getting is,
Scott, did you want to second that?
I'll second the motion, yes.
Scott seconded. Any discussion? The only discussion I'd like to say is I appreciate. all the
Yeah,
work
no,
you're
this has
doing.
been great.
And we truly, at least I couldn't have come this far. So appreciate your work and ethic, your hard work. And this is something we all believe the town needs. So really thankful for your service. So this should be great. And a month or two, we should have a completed document and really move forward. So thanks for your.
And I can agree with that. I think, thank you. This is a vision that I, definitely something I saw as a weakness, and to bring everybody around the table has been really helpful. So thank you for everything.
Okay, all in favor of the motion?
I,
Aye. Motion passes 3-0. Welcome to the committee. Okay.
now, just can you update us as to, you would requested applications from,
Yeah, I requested, off the top of my head, I can't recall, but I'm pretty sure John Goodrich sent an application.
okay,
I think it's the application there is. I could be wrong, but I think that's,
I believe John had sent you in a letter and an application basically, but I'm not sure that Lauren Gauthier had yet. But I can-
correct. Yeah, John, I definitely received several pieces of. Six of us will consider representatives from the residents at the next meeting as well. We have one, John Goodrich, who's expressed interest, and hopefully we get more. Okay, any other comments from community members?
no, I think it's great. And, should you think we should invite someone from the historic?
I was thinking about how do we get that data? Because it's kind of scattered.
Can we
out.
just invite them if they don't want to join the committee, if they just want to come share their
The
thoughts?
taupe, right? They would be on the taupe.
I don't think they're on the list. I
They're not
was
on the
thinking about
list.
adding them.
They're not a staff member on the list. I mean, maybe something to consider for.
Yeah.
for Next meeting.
Yeah.
Can you reach out and invite them?
Yeah, well,
Are there different historical groups?
Yeah,
The
that's
historical-
there's Mystic
historical,
right?
yeah.
There's no like historical.
I don't.
So
Yeah.
we got to think about how we get all that information. So absolutely, we can add it to the flow chart. We need to get the data. The question is how.
Depending on the parcel, you would bring in a historic person. that
That's,
pre-
okay, that's,
Know what I mean?
that's a fair point. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if it's not, or you might ask the historic person in that region anyway.
So would it be fair just to reach out to at least one historical person to give us a little bit of language or thoughts on how we should incorporate? Because I think they should be consulted as in the list, but
Why don't we do this? Why don't we all think about it? Because I don't like to make any decisions unless everybody has something to think about it. Think about who to reach out to, or how we want to do that. We want to add it. The next meeting we'll.
and they're always welcome. And if anyone thinks of someone from a historic, we can invite them. Anyone's welcome. So
Yeah,
they can speak.
citizen, yeah, public comments are always available.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay, anyone would like to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned by.
Okay.
Seconded by.
Oh,
Us now.
Yeah, you're.
Oh.
All right, motion has. been first,
Well,
seconded.
flow charts got you guys in the door.
All in favor of the motion to adjourn?
I
6-0.
was gonna say,
Thank
you have a motion with 3 people and it's seconded. Why even take a vote? I'm sitting there going, huh?
It's an even number. Hope we don't have a problem.
Yeah.
All right, meeting has been adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, residents.
Have a great Thanksgiving, everybody.
Thank you too.
Oh, yeah. Thanksgiving.
What we do.
Let's stop.